Assalamualaikum. Wani, Tuan boleh dengar? Assalamualaikum, Dr. Rahina.
Boleh, Prof.
Apa khabar?
Alhamdulillah baik, Prof. Apa khabar?
Okey, Alhamdulillah.
Program lain ya, Prof, after this.
Ya, ada. Assalamualaikum. Wani, Tuan boleh dengar? Okey. Oh, YouTube dah on dah. So, Dr. Rahina dah ready ya?
Ya.
Kita akan mulakan pukul 9 ya. So, insyaAllah kita akan ada peserta-peserta yang sama. I think you've got a fan already, Dr. Rai.
Alhamdulillah. I'm trying to finish my Medium article based on these 3 sessions, but it's taking me a little bit more time. So
Yeah, I think
hopefully by tonight I will share the article.
Oh, that will be great because that will be good to kind of put things together, kan? All the 3 sessions, the main points.
For me as well, actually.
Yeah,
for me
yeah.
as well.
In fact, everyone actually can write their own also, kan? Their own reflection and also how they summarize from their own understanding.
One of the participants shared with me personally last week her 30 list of blessings as an educator on her blog.
Wow.
So that was
The only participant who did the homework.
yes. So that was good. That was good.
Yeah. I wish I could really convince people to do reflection, self-reflection on anything, Yeah, a lot. It's such a powerful technique.
I think it comes from experience. Sometimes you need to go through crisis like this, the pandemic, or where situations where you didn't expect, and you need to come against a wall, and then you have to reflect how did I go through this? Or after a while, on retrospect, you have to think back and you have to reflect, and that's when the learning comes. So I think there will be it might be a minority, but there will be a group of people who will start to conduct reflection, not because they're taught to, but it just comes naturally, especially as you mature through your craft. So I'm quite hopeful that this will happen. Yeah.
I think in the Western, the journaling, basically writing on the traditional diary, that's is quite a widespread practice, kan? Tapi kita di Asia ni, or Asian ni maybe different kot, It's not really a kind of habitual things that we do. Something that we have to nurture and practice and encourage. I think, again, I think we should start, from home, then the school. In the school, kan, rather than getting students just to write essay as part of the subject. So I think we should really practice this one. Kalau daripada sekolah lagi budak-budak ni dah dilakukan, then insyaAllah dia akan menjadi second nature lah.
Yeah. It's partly juga because we focus too much on the progress, Prof. If you think about it, we focus on reaching certain milestones, but we forget the process is as important. That every single step that you take, whether it's not successful or it is successful, or it's a struggle or it's an achievement, every single step of the process of the journey is as important and valuable.
Yes.
But sometimes we want to celebrate achievement too much that we forget the journey is as important. So that's why journaling, I think, I at the end of my session today, because it's just going to be an hour session just to wrap up everything.
Okay.
But at the end of the session, I will share some famous names, including Da Vinci, Marie Curie, who journal, or they call it notebook, or they might have different terms for it. But the exercise is still the same. Setting goals, being reflective, asking questions, jotting down your learning moments, so I think this is something we need to inculcate in you're right, in our students as well. But it starts with us, because if educators are not doing it, we need to walk the talk, kan?
Yes.
Because if we don't do it, it's like, how can you preach if you cannot do it yourself? It just doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And I think another thing, apart from apart from aiming for success only, we always think about perfection, or I tak pandai tulis, we want to make it perfect. So itu one of the issues I think we are facing, kan?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good conversation. I'll try to join if I can, but otherwise probably after I introduce, then mungkin
No problem, Prof.
Yeah.
No problem.
Try to see how. Actually, I would love to be here because nak watch the recording tu dah jadi lain kan, tak syok sangat. But anyway, let me start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Start video. Not video.
That's why I was wondering, Prof, dekat tempat lain ke tak ada kamera on?
Inilah, no, terlupa. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, selamat sejahtera to everyone here. Thank you for joining our webinar series brought to you by Center for Development of Academic Excellence, CDAE, University Science Malaysia, Pusat Pembangunan Kecemerlangan Akademik. My name is Abdul Karim alias Director of CDAE. For your information, especially those joining through YouTube, not from USM, CDAE is a center tasked to run professional development program training for our academic staff across the 3 campuses, basically focusing on program or trainings related to teaching and learning, especially, and integration of technology. Today, we are very lucky to have Professor Madia Dr. Raihana Muhammad Maidin from UKM. I've introduced her previously, so maybe to cut short, maybe you can refer to the previous parts for the introduction. This is actually the 3rd and the final series on the art of journaling for educators, and this is part 3 on the final part on personalized journaling template for educators. So I would like to thank Dr. Rahana for your information. Dr. Rai is one of the recipients of Anugerah Akademik Negara or National Academic Award, the highest and the most prestigious award that I think as a recognition of the scholarship of the academic. So I guess you will see from her presentation, I still remember her as a very eloquent presenter, being from language background. So I wish, actually I learned from Dr. Rai also how to be more eloquent. My pronunciation was anyway, Dr. Rai, I would love to be here for the whole session, but I have to leave shortly. So I'd like to thank you once again for accepting our invitation and for sharing your knowledge on journaling. And I really hope and I urge everyone listening after these 3 parts, if you have been following, take action. Take action, start doing the journaling or blogging, because you will find, if you have not done it before, you will find it's a very, very powerful and very satisfying thing to do. So without further ado, Dr. Rai, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Karim. Thank you for making time despite your hectic schedule. I really, truly appreciate this. I'll go straight into it. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. I'm trying to share my screen. Can somebody tell me if you can see the screen?
Not yet. Is not yet. Still blank. Belum keluar lagi. Lambat sangat keluar. Recently Webex ni macam ada isu sikit.
How do I get out?
Itu dengan mana ya? Sampai ke sudah tak dapat tengok dia punya screen.
Lama.
Kita buat yang mana? Recently, last week lah.
Okay, I'm going to try again. Share.
Mungkin try share application ke share screen. Dia dua kan, satu share screen, satu share specific application. Okay. Now can see.
Can?
Can.
Okay. All right, so I'll get started.
All right. Bye-bye, Turai.
Okay, bye. Take care, Prof. See you this weekend, inshallah.
All right, inshallah.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for making time for our third and final webinar session. Actually, this is more like a training session for me rather than a webinar because I would have loved to be there with you in USM in your own space and conducting this training. But all the same, we make do with whatever situations that comes our way. So the final segment of the three-part series of this training session on journaling for educators is entitled Personalized Journaling Template for Educators. But before that, if you notice on the chat, someone has posted about the Telegram group. Please do join us in the Telegram group. For those of you who have not been joining us the last couple of times, this is where we actually have the conversation. So I might ask you certain questions, and it would be nice to hear your thoughts in the Telegram group rather than in the chat. Okay. So let's get started. Hopefully today's session will be around an hour because we're wrapping up primarily the things that we have been talking about the last couple of weeks. And, hopefully it will make more sense as we bring the whole thing together. Okay, so just a quick recap of the kind of things that we discussed 2 weeks ago, all right? This was the first session. We discussed how not experience that teaches us, but the reflection or reflecting on the experience. Just a second, It's a typo there. All right, that's better. Okay, so we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on the experience. This is what John Dewey, the education reformer, once said. And that has stuck with me for the longest time because I think, going through a particular journey does not mean you have learned from that journey. You need to sit and ask structured questions about the journey in order for you to have the best knowledge from that experience, right? So that was the first thing that we talked about. The other thing we talked about is as educators, our tool is us, our ability to teach, to grow, to engage, to motivate our learners, right? So we need to work on ourselves, as Stephen Covey says in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 7, sharpen the saw. So our tool, if you like, is us, our ability to articulate, as Prof. Karim said earlier, our ability to kind of see the world and reflect and capture in our journaling or reflection or blogging or whatever ways that we find useful. And one of the key ways to do that, to sharpen the saw, is to reflect. Journaling is a fundamental way. There are many ways, of course. You can vlog if you're into that. You can blog. You can write and publish in places like Medium, but it has to start somewhere, all right? And some of us are more private. We don't really want to make our thoughts known, right? Unless it's research related writing. So these thoughts, we may capture it and save them in our journals. Last week, somebody asked, what's the difference between journal and diary? Absolutely nothing, right? You may even call it a notebook. Leonardo da Vinci, later at the end of the session, I will mention him. His writings were known as notebooks. He kept them in notebooks. He had over 7,000 pages of notebooks, right, in which he captured things like questions, ideas, the things he wants to do. He has a to-do list, things that he wants to achieve, equations, drawings. So you may call it whatever term that fits well with your discourse, but it is still the art of writing and expressing and reflecting, okay? But once you've done that, once you've done the writing, what do you do with them? What do you do with the writing, right? There must be something that you can achieve from that art of looking at your own writing. One of the things is to deconstruct what you have written, to look at it and to ask yourselves, what insights can I get from my own writing? You know, sometimes you read people's writing and you get insights, you get inspired by their writing and their thoughts. But maybe you can do that with your own writing, right? And these are the ways that we grow as educators. This art of deconstructing, reflecting, looking at your own writing is what scholars will call self-regulation. So we need to develop the ability to self-regulate, not let other people regulate us, but we regulate ourselves. And in so doing, you actually develop one of the key intelligences that Howard Gardner talks about in Multiple Intelligence, which is intrapersonal intelligence. And this is, this is the key to kind of like unlock our potential, right? So as we develop intrapersonal intelligence, we also do something else, which is to identify and perhaps even reduce and minimize the blind spots in our craft, in our person, in our everyday conducts as an educator. So that was the first session. The last week, we kind of took the discussion and the conversation one step further. We looked at micro habits of journaling. So if anybody can recall, go to your Telegram group. For those of you who are in the Telegram group, give me one micro habit that you remember from the conversation last week. Give me one micro habit from last week's session. Can anybody recall any? Okay, Aman is writing. Thank you. Prompt. Brilliant, Aman. High five to you. Anybody else? I see Zahira writing. So prompt is one. Brilliant. So we've got 4 more. No? Forgotten already. Reframing. Good job. But then, Zahira, you need to reframe that statement. Reframing, question mark, come on, a little bit more decisive, like, be more assertive, like, I know what I'm talking about. Reframing, exclamation mark, brilliant. Questions, good job. Identify bias, good. Negativity bias, identify negativity bias, brilliant. Reframe those negativity biases. Count your blessings, awesome. Did we miss any? I think that's about right, yeah? Good job. High five to everybody, well done. Okay, so these are the micro habits that, of course, there are many, right? I kind of like just identified 5 key ones that I felt was something that was useful as educators, that we could use as educators. So begin with a prompt, and the prompt is basically incomplete sentences that you can kind of like, complete at any other time, anytime you're free, okay? Begin with a question. You ask yourself some critical question, identify your negativity bias, reframe those negativity biases by being more expressive and looking at the other side or another point of view, and then count your blessings. Okay, so just to recap, the main reasons why journaling would work for educators is this. Number one, it reduces your blind spots in your teaching. As you do self-appraisal, you are able to kind of reduce the blind spots in your own approach as an educator. You develop the big picture mindset, because you're not focusing only on specifics, you're also focusing on the bigger picture. You focus on the process, every step of the session, as well as the progress, right? Where am I going with this? What are the milestones I'm achieving as an educator in developing my craft as an educator? You also reduce the negativity bias. You frame the negative experience and look at it from another point of view. And in so doing, maybe even see the silver lining and maybe even be able to see the blessing in that experience. You can count your blessings this way. So that was one of the things. And last week, somebody asked about, because they're not all about keeping journals, and like I've got diaries left, right, and center. I've got diaries everywhere because I'm more a pen and paper kind of a girl. But you might be somebody who says, I like technology, and the gentleman who asked us the question last week said, he would lose his diary. He wouldn't remember where the diary was. So these are some 2021 best journaling apps that's available. So you may look at some of them and see whether they work with you. Some works with Windows, some with iOS. So if it's helpful, basically don't let there be a reason why you're not journaling as an educator. Because if you're not the paper and pen kind of a person, you may want to try the digital format. But so do try. All right. So for today's session, for the next 40 minutes or so, I just want to kind of like probe a little bit on this. So every aspect of our person as an educator is something that needs to be developed. Every component of it, in terms of your mindset, in terms of your skill sets, right? But this is something I want to kind of probe a little bit. I just want to set the scene and let me know whether you agree or not. This is a statement I'm posing to all of us. Educators' lack of growth mindset hinders their growth and those of their learners. Educators' lack of growth mindset hinders their growth and those of their learners. Yet, many educators don't realize that they have a fixed mindset. Okay, so our mindset actually hinders or help or promote our learners' mindset growth as well, right? But my statement is that many educators don't realize that they have a fixed mindset, attitude about their craft, about themselves, and indirectly about their learners. Do you agree? I want to see some thoughts. Let me know what you think. In our Telegram, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Aman, thank you. So we're talking about ourselves here, So, as educators, do we have a fixed mindset or do we have a growth mindset? What do you think? My statement is that many educators don't realize, but they actually have a fixed mindset. So far, people are agreeing with me. But this is not good, right? Right? Being somebody in the education field, all of us, we need to actually move towards having growth mindset rather than fixed mindset, right? Rather than looking at a particular class and say, you know, these students, they're not going to make it, they're not going to do well, they just don't have what it takes. We kind of like, we in our mind, we've branded them and labeled them a particular type of learner, right? And we are not able to move beyond that. And because of that, we're not able to move forward with their learning and their progress, largely because of our inability to see the glass half full rather than the glass half empty, to see, to have these negativity biases, right? So how do we overcome them? So thank you so much for those who participated in our Telegram discussion. So now another question that I'm posing to you: which of these negativity biases is familiar to you, that maybe you yourself, you might have said them, you might, you know, you might feel them, right? Which of these? I can't do this. I'm never good enough. They are so much smarter than I am. I'm afraid of their judgment. This is the worst thing that could have happened. I failed. I feel like giving up. I feel all alone in this. So which of these statements, you know, running thoughts, ruminations, have you felt or are familiar to you? Let me know in the Telegram. Or if it's none of them, just say none of them. Thank you so much, MY. I'm never good enough. I can't do this. Thank you. I'm afraid of their judgment. I feel all alone in this. All look familiar to me. Thank you, Maria. Right? So, you know, think about that. If we don't work on ourselves in the way we present ourselves to the world at large, to our students specifically, these are the kind of statements that we might get from our learners. And hence, this is what I mean. You know, so our lack of growth mindset also, you know, hinders our students' ability to grow, right? As individuals, you know, as potential individuals. Okay, so what do we do about it? As I said in the beginning, as I said in the second webinar, you know, negativity biases has a lot of repercussions. You know, it causes stress. You know, it causes fear and anxiety, but it can also cause the development of, or rather, the promotion of fixed mindset, right? So this is a quote that I think is worth kind of looking at. Margaret Jaworski in this blog post, The Negativity Bias, Why the Bad Stuff Sticks. And this is a quote I would like to read to you from that article, Dr. Kenneth Yeager. The single most important underlying factor is how we talk to ourselves about our experiences. If you challenge yourself to be mindful of your daily activities, noticing what's important and what isn't, you are more likely to have positive life experiences. Okay, so you need to be mindful of these kinds of statements that you are making. And because of that, you also can help promote a more growth mindset. So let's probe this a little bit in today's session, okay? So in another blog post, these negativity bias are known as mind viruses, okay? So those statements that I shared with you, they came from here. I made a mistake. I'm afraid of judgment. I don't like what I've done here. They're so much smarter than I am. Let me just let me share this link specifically. Just a second, just bear with me. It's not really something. Okay, there you go. Here. Oh, okay. I shared the link, so if you want to kind of like probe it a little bit more, you may. Let's see whether it works. So, but every step of these, every statement or that are being posted here, known as viruses, right? Mind viruses. There is a medicine for it. There is a kind of a solution for it. So let's just have a look at a couple here. I don't like what I've done here. The medicine is, the thing that you can say to yourself is, upon reframing these negativity bias, is it's okay if this isn't your best work. This is a good place to be, and you can work on it more to get where you want it to be. So these are statements that you can do to reframe the negativity bias. Okay. Another one, I failed. You know, this is something that a lot of us tend to kind of like grapple with, right? And I think the way you reframe it is as powerful. Have a look at this, the medicine. This situation doesn't define you, and you can try something different now. I like that. Okay. So it's like you've gone through an experience, it didn't go well, didn't go as well as you wanted to. And in your mind, you keep thinking, I failed. But one way to kind of reframe that negativity bias is by looking at it and saying to yourself that that moment did not define your entire being as an educator. That moment is just one aspect, and now you can try something else. You've tried that, it didn't work. Now you can try something else. So that's one way to reframe these negativity biases. All right, so, you know, this comes to another component of growth mindset, which is this notion of being a resilient educator. You want your learners to be resilient, right? You want them to, you know, maybe you give them a test or quiz or something, and they didn't do very well. And you kind of sit through with them and talk to them and say, what are the areas that you need to improve? And you want them to think that, okay, fine, I didn't do very well in that test, but that doesn't define me the entire semester or the entire year or in this subject. I can still improve. So that element is called being resilient, right? But if we as educators are not resilient ourselves, how are we going to inculcate that? How are we going to nurture that in our learners? So that's my premise. So we need to inculcate that in ourselves. That means we need to experiment. We need to try things out. We might fail. We might succeed. We might do well. We might not, right? But every experience allows us an opportunity to strengthen ourselves and our grit or our resilience, right? As an educator. So think about it. Which of these key components of a resilient educator do you want to master? You know, because there are many and we can't all be doing everything, right? So you may look at one or two and say, okay, I want to master these. I want to get better at these. Maybe for 2021, we've done 3 months, right? We've got 9 months to go for the rest of the year. Maybe you want to say, for the rest of the year, I want to develop mastery of one of these components. Be a lifelong learner about your craft. Be inquisitive and ask critical, creative questions about your teaching. Be inquisitive and attempt something new in your teaching. Be flexible and ready to adapt to new circumstances. Be prepared to learn, use, and integrate technology where needed. Be a good listener. Listen to the needs of your students and colleagues. Finally, be reflective of your circumstance and approach. So my choice is the last one, hence this webinar series, right? Looking at journaling. So you may look at them and say, you know, there are something else that I want to kind of develop, but you can still incorporate them into the art of journaling. So I'm gonna kind of like talk you through that. Anybody has any thoughts? Which ones? So Zahira says, thank you so much. Agree with the final one. Yeah. So, you know, if you're looking at templates, you know, like which templates do I use to kind of journal? I'm going to share with you a site which has many, you know, numerous templates. And from that site, I'm just going to share some of these templates. So these templates came from the website that I just shared with you, the link that I shared with you in our Telegram. There are many, I think about 10 templates, 10 or 12 templates, but I just kind of like, you know, access 3. And all 3 share the same kind of structure. There is something similar with all 3. So one of them is, you know, this reflective journal. One of them is, you know, you think about critical and analytical ways in which you can help your work progress better. You know, as it can be an educator, it can be in any field, right? And the key components of this type of journaling is you record, you know, where your inspiration comes from, how you make use of the ideas to develop your work, your awareness of the context or the setting in which you work. And then like an artist, you kind of bring them all together. And these kind of journaling, you know, you can have research notes, you can have personal comments, thoughts and ideas, you can have images, you can have doodlings, right? You can have quotes. You can maybe have even lecture notes and journal articles in there, plus books and sketches. So this is one format. Another format is more, you know, looking at specific components. You look at questions. You look at, you know, asking yourself the bigger question, and then you be more speculative, thinking about specific situations and students' response and then reacting to it. You be more self-aware in certain components. You integrate both the theory, the things that you're reading, with ideas that you're developing. You come up with certain thoughts there. You do a critique, a self-appraisal of sorts, and then you do a reflection cycle. Yeah, so you record what you see, you reflect on it, you analyze, and then you start something new again. You go through that cycle. And another kind of a pattern, this might look more complicated, but I know some people who like this kind of like a flow chart, you know, asking specific questions at specific points. So you have like, you know, in each box, you ask specific questions. What happened? What did I do? And then ask yourself, how did I feel about what I did? You know, then you go on to say, who do I blame? You know, because I'm feeling this. Who do I blame about this? And then you ask yourself also, you know, what is my honest, objective assessment about what happened? You know, can I really blame somebody else? Do I need to take responsibility of it myself? What can I take from this? What lessons can I take from this? What improvements can I make, right? What do I need to learn? What do I need to kind of, where do I need to grow in order to achieve this new aspect of me that I want to become, right? How will I measure this kind of level of achievement? How do I know I've succeeded, for instance, right? From here, you can either come back to the first question or maybe even go on to the final question. What aspect of my job or development does this relate to? So these are kind of various templates. So have a look at that and ask yourself these kinds of critical questions. But for today's session, I'm just going to kind of break it down to specific aspect of reflective journaling. And, you know, kind of looking at it in this way, step-by-step guide. The first thing would be to describe what happened. So you may do this yourself if you want. Think of a challenging class that you taught, maybe recently, maybe the last few years. You can ask yourself, descriptive questions like, what took place in that lesson that made it so challenging? What did you do in class? How did your student respond to you? What exactly did the student do that caused it to be challenging? Was it something that they did? Was it something that they didn't do? So be more descriptive, think about that. This is something that I did back in 2012, okay? 2012 was like a really challenging year for me, specifically as an educator. I felt like I felt like I was facing a brick wall when it comes to my craft as an educator. I was not able to connect with the student, the student population in my class. I would give them challenging tasks, and somehow they just don't seem motivated. Some of them would bring their handphones in class and be looking at their handphones instead of listening to the session, to the lecture. In class during lectures, you're in front, you're giving your lecture, and then they are unashamedly yawning in front of you. Those kinds of very disrespectful attitudes. Now, of course, I was being, at that time, my sense of blame is on them. I was thinking like, what's wrong with our students? They're so disrespectful. In my time, students would respect their teachers and all that. So I kind of like shifted the blame on them, Didn't occur to me that maybe there was something in my teaching approach at that time that needed to be kind of improved, right? I didn't look at it that way. So this was a very challenging situation. And I remember there's this one particular class, especially a literature class. I teach literature, by the way. So for literature, you need to have read the text before coming to class, So if you haven't read the text, you come to class, you don't know what's going on, or you can't participate in the tutorial sessions, especially. So remember this one particular class, I went in, started to kind of like do the tutorial task with them, and I realized within 5-10 minutes, they haven't read the text. Almost 3/4 of the class, they haven't read the text. So I said to them, okay, fine, I'm going to give you all this week, right? So for this tutorial session, please use this time, this week, finish the novel. I'll come back next week, we will do the task. Come back the following week, still, they haven't read the text, So I kind of like lost my cool. I kind of just, told them off, lost my cool, told them off, left the class, went back into my office and just sat down and felt sorry for myself as a teacher. I just kind of felt, I was very emotional. I was like, oh my God, what happened? I mean, at that time, teaching was my passion. And I felt like, wow, I've done something wrong. Like I can't think of more challenging situation as a teacher for me because I am not getting through to them, So that will be my most challenging class. So do you want to share, any of you want to share your challenging experiences? Anyone? Okay. Zahira is writing, so I'll look forward to what you write, Zahira. The second step, and I think this is the bit that kind of tipped the scale for me, right? Describe how you felt. How did you feel about the lesson? How did you feel about your overall performance? How did you feel about the students' participation? Were they responsive to your instruction? Were they contributing to the discussion? Were they asking, engaging critical questions with you? And in asking how you felt, this is I think the key. becoming more of a growth mindset educator. We're part of a component of the educator that is, part of the component of somebody with growth mindset is our emotional intelligence and our emotional literacy, our ability to articulate our emotions, our ability to kind of like address how we feel about certain situations. There is this YouTube TED Talk by Dr. Alan Watkins. It's quite engaging. So if you have time, do check it out. Watkins says many things in that short TED Talk. And one of the few things that kind of stood out to me is this: feelings are the awareness in our mind of the energy that we are feeling or experiencing. And energy in motion is emotion. So when we think about feelings, it's the awareness in our mind of the emotions that we are experiencing and the energy in our, in ourselves. You notice when you're angry, you have a certain kind of energy in you. And when you're joyful or happy, you have a different kind of energy. And when you're anxious, you have a different kind of energy as well. So according to Watkins, when most people settle on basic 10 to 12 types of emotions when they describe how they feel, there are in fact over 34,000 emotions that can be experienced. So, if you ask yourself, how do you feel? And your answer is, one of those 10, maybe angry or happy or excited or frustrated or anxious or fearful. You come up with those basic words. They don't actually help you understand what exactly is going on in you when you have experienced that traumatic, challenging situations. So one of the things to do as educators is to develop emotional literacy. So emotional literacy is the ability to identify and articulate the different emotions we feel at any given moment. So, on a given day, when you go into a classroom, you are going through various kinds of emotions because of the things that happened before coming to class, and your students likewise are also experiencing a range of emotions. And we're trying to kind of like, meet and communicate and interact and get the learning done. So this is something we need to value. So I want you to think about this question. Why do you think it's valuable for us to have strong emotional literacy as educators? One of the reasons would be is because in order for us to relate and engage with our learners, we need to be able to be aware of our own emotional state and be empathetic towards their emotional state. So hence the emotional literacy and emotional intelligence, that component. So when you think about describing your feeling, after identifying those challenging classes that you have experienced, when you think about describing your feeling, I want you to also think about this, The Feeling Wheel by Gloria Wilcox, where, you may settle for the inner circle. Maybe you will have words like sad, I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm scared, I'm joyful, I feel powerful, I feel peaceful. But think about this second circle and the range of words that describes mad. Last week one of us said, like the angry feeling, how he doesn't want to kind of express those thoughts. Angry or mad has a kind of a range of emotions as well. You may be feeling critical, you may be feeling hateful or rageful or angry or hostile or hurt. And those have further kind of expressions. Maybe it's you're irritated, maybe you're feeling furious, maybe you're actually feeling frustrated, not just mad, specifically you're feeling frustrated because you've done what you need to do, but it's not reciprocated. Students are not there doing their bit to make learning work. So you're frustrated. So it's actually not mad, right? You're not just angry, but you're frustrated. You're angry because you need them to do their bit in order for the learning to work. So this feeling wheel actually helps break down the emotions that you feel. So when you're journaling, you know, and if you're asking yourself at the end of the day, how do I feel? Have a look at this, the wheel, the feeling wheel. I'll share with you in a bit. And maybe this would help you journal better, articulate your emotions better. Okay, I see lots of comments coming in the Telegram. Okay, cool. Zahira just shared something. I'm just gonna take a time out and go through this. Zahira says, I asked some questions. Okay, let's have, can we do this? There you go. So, can't make this bigger, can I? Right, never mind. So Zahira says, I asked some questions where I wanted them to admit some mistakes they made when it comes to managing emotions at workplace. I realized everyone did not feel comfortable to admit as their colleagues were around. So no response at all. In fact, throughout the whole module, the energy was low. I find it challenging to engage them in online classes. I also felt kind of demotivated. So yeah, I mean, these are feelings that are real, you know, and something that we are grappling with. Let me see whether I can find the feeling wheel in my, is it here? There you go. So you know, download this for yourself if it's helpful. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Zahira. You know, breaking it down doesn't take the problem away. That's not the point, right? Breaking it down, breaking your emotions down helps you understand and articulate for yourself what exactly are you experiencing. So it kind of does something specific. It helps you to do this, what Alan Watkins talks about. It objectifies your emotion. You kind of like step back and be able to look at your emotion and be able to describe it. This is one way to develop emotional literacy. So you are asking questions like, do I like the feelings that I'm feeling? What's causing it? How exactly can I reduce the effect of this feeling on me? The statement is not complete. Not sure what I wanted to say here, but okay. All right, so, you know, the feeling wheel is actually a step. I know a lot of us will be like, you know, I'm not going to go talking about my feelings, please. But the point is, as educators, we are face to face with students, and their feelings and emotions are expressed, you know, in their being. You know, they are either they may look bored, but in fact, they just can't follow the lesson, and they're in fact frustrated with themselves, maybe that they are not able to follow along like other students. And because of that, they come across as if they're not bothered, or they come across as if, they're disrespectful. So there are other things that's going on that we need to kind of unpack. So the emotional literacy that we need to develop as educators will help us engage them, will actually help us motivate them better, you know. But like I said, it needs to start with us. We need to be able to say, do we know how we feel at any given moment? Can we articulate those words? And if we're not able to kind of identify them, having a look at these words may actually trigger it. Maybe you may look at the outer circle and you may ask yourself, you know, which of these express my feeling right now? Maybe I feel foolish. Maybe I feel embarrassed. You know, maybe I feel discouraged. So that they come back to what? I'm feeling scared, in fact. So you may look at your students and you may look at them and say, you know, they look like they can't be bothered. But if you kind of break it down and get to know them a little bit, maybe they think they feel certain things, but if you get to know them and you start to look at these words, you realize that they are in fact perhaps feeling something else, but it starts with us as well, right? How do we feel about certain experiences that we are going through? So journaling, I personally feel, helps. This is my thought. And then step number 4, you've described the experience, you've described your emotions, right? You've objectified your emotion, right? Step away from the emotion, look at the emotion as if it's an object, and then asking these kinds of questions. Do I like this feeling? This feeling of being angry, do I like it? Of course not, right? This feeling of being angry towards my student. Of course not. What caused them? Because they are not engaging with me. What can I do to reduce this? How can I reach them? How can I improve this so that I don't feel angry or frustrated or whatever, right? And then the bigger question to ask is to step back and look at the bigger picture and ask yourself these analytical questions now. So you're going higher order thinking skills for yourself. How is it similar to previous classes? How is it different from previous classes? What have I learned from this context? How can I improve on this situation? What role can I play to improve this situation? What role can the learners play to improve the situation? This is exactly what I did back in the 2012 thereabouts. Fortunately for me, we actually had it's like a teaching and learning congress that organized by UKM back into 2012. And at that time, the keynote was presented, one of the many keynotes, there were about 3 keynotes, if I'm not mistaken. One of them was presented by Prof. Dato Muhammad Amin MB. He talked about flipped classroom. I was like, never heard of it at the time, this back in the day. This is not something I was familiar with, but just sat through it, he just talked about the key components of it and the what, the how and the why. I kind of, it's like, okay, fine. This sounds interesting. Record your lectures, put it up, get the students to go through it, give them certain tasks, get them to go through it. When you come to class, you just do the assessments or the tutorial tasks or the activities, or so you flip the learning. So I was like, okay, interesting. Let's try. So I did. Following year, 2013, went for some short courses on how to do Camtasia and recording your lectures, this, that, and the other. So I did do that, and things did start to change. I find that what was missing in my teaching and learning was that I was not teaching as my students wanted me to. I was teaching the traditional way. I was in front, I was giving lectures, when in fact they wanted to learn at their time, at their pace. And maybe sometimes some of them wanted to learn at night. Some of them preferred to learn, in the evenings rather than at 8 o'clock class or 10 o'clock class. So it's, I wrote about this in some book chapters. But the point of this is that these critical analytical questions that I asked myself actually helped me get to the root of what was really causing the friction between me and my learners in terms of them being not motivated in doing the class work. It actually helped improve my situation and reignite my passion in my teaching and learning. So seeing the bigger picture, asking yourself these critical questions, especially the last 2, what role can I play to improve the situation? And more importantly, if not equally important, what role can learners play to improve the situation? And the final step, if you like, is having written that, having expressed that, having looked at the situation and analyze the situation, you need to come back to it. After a while, need to come back to it and deconstruct what you have reflected. Ask yourself questions like, what stood out? What surprised you? What surprised me was that I would actually feel discouraged, in the context of teaching and learning. I never thought I would ever feel that, But yeah, it's real that you can do, you do go through a situation where you feel burnt out because you're no longer able to sustain the passion. But the learning curve for me then was that I need to change and evolve, learn and unlearn and relearn in order to sustain the passion. So if you remember about the resilient educator that I talked about at the beginning, one of the key things about being a resilient educator is being a lifelong learner about the craft. It's not to teach the way you have been teaching for X number of years, but also to ask yourself, how can I improve on this? How can I use technology to make it better? Maybe you used to use OHP, if any of you remember such things, and then now you use a PowerPoint, and maybe, you want to kind of like keep improving with the situation. And maybe instead of coming with lectures, maybe you want to record those lectures and put it up on your learning management system, and then maybe get the students to view them before coming to class. So when they come to class, they can start asking you questions about what they have seen. Right? So there are ways to kind of make your learning more fun, but it starts with us being more resilient, right? As an educator, being able to kind of admit we've done certain things that we need to kind of improve on, and being prepared to improve on them, including learning, including asking critical questions, and being more reflective in our teaching and learning, right? So this journaling is just one component of developing resiliency as an educator. So these analytical, critical, deconstructive kind of questions helps you develop insights into your own teaching and learning. Sometimes there's treasure in your experience. We go to people, like Prof. Karim, you go to your mentors and ask them questions based on their experience, but you forget that we ourselves have experienced a lot, but we need to mine from that experience for those treasures, for those insights, that will help us benefit. Rather than wait for somebody else to tell us, we can actually benefit from our own experiences. So that those teachable moments tend to be moments that can be quite painful to reflect on. Maybe it's a bit embarrassing. You feel embarrassed that you blundered as an educator, that you didn't do as well as you hoped, right? But those are moments to kind of capture in your journal and reflect. Come back to them when you feel more settled, emotionally more settled, but look at them and say, what have I learned from this? How has it developed my mastery in my craft as an educator? So that's basically the recap of the recap and wrapping up of journaling for educators. Okay, so this last 5 minutes or so, I just want to kind of look at journaling for personal growth. You may use journaling for various aspects of your life, right? You may use journaling for your physical growth. Maybe you want to kind of work out, you want to kind of have a regimen. You might want to journal about that. Maybe you want to journal about your spiritual growth or your emotional, psychological growth. So the last 2.5 sessions, we've been looking at journaling for educators specifically. Okay, this was largely because of the pandemic. This last 12 plus months, the kind of challenges that we all have gone through is quite unprecedented, right? So a lot of things that has happened need to be captured somehow in written form for us to then be able to look back on them and say, these are the things I've learned from this crisis. These are the things that I have gained. These are the things that I have developed. These are the questions that I have asked about myself, for myself and my learners. So these are the ways I want to kind of further improve in my craft. Remember, sharpening the saw, right? What Covey talks about. But these final thoughts, I just want to look at journaling as a kind of a exercise that we do as part of our everyday exercise, for personal growth. So just very quickly, these are some public figures who are known to have kept journals, right? You have the first century Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius. You've got the 15th, 16th century, yes, he's a Stoic, Zahira. The 15th, 16th century Italian artist, Da Vinci. You've got the 19th, 20th century physicist, the Polish-French Marie Curie. You have the 19th century American poet, philosopher, Emerson. And you have the 20th century Jewish teenager who kept a diary when she was with her family, in hiding, Anne Frank. And these are some of them. There are like numerous figures, even today, well-known figures who keep journals, as part of their everyday culture, if you like. All right. So one of the things I want to just leave you with is lessons from Da Vinci's journaling habits. So these images are some of the images from Da Vinci, some of journals, some of the pages of Da Vinci's 7,000-page notebook, right? In his notebooks, he captured many things, right? These are some of them. You can learn more from the biography on Da Vinci. And some of the funny things that he has kind of like annotated, I'll share with you in the next slide. His to-do list, like things he wants to do, things he wants to achieve, if you like. Not to-do list as in do laundry, go buy milk for the house, or not that kind of a to-do list, but more about aspirations, his goal settings, if you like, right? As well as questions to probe later. It also shows both his inquisitive nature and his observational mind, as well as his experimental thought. So the point is that, when we talk about journaling, it's not just about writing words down that reflects what we have experienced. It is also about where we want to go, what we want to achieve. It can also be snapshots of the things that you see around, that you observe around you, right? So these two illustrations here are exactly from his notebooks, right? Things that he observed. You notice there are like math equations, apparently because it was expensive. Paper was expensive, right? So each page would be covered as extensively as possible. He wouldn't lose any space. He would make full use of every space on a particular page, right? So on each page you will have various things. And one thing about Da Vinci, his mind wanders from one thing to another. He's a very fascinating character. His biography is really worth a read. That idea of being focused and doing one thing, that's not him. He tends to kind of go from one thing to another, but by being able to kind of capture it in his notebooks, he is then able to move forward with various interests. So maybe this is something you might be interested in. Maybe some of you've got lots of different interests. You're interested in various aspects, both your craft as well. You've got other passions of your own. You may want to journal about that, right? You may want to keep a journal that captures those various interests, and maybe come back to them and ask yourself, which of these components do I want to develop for whatever reason? Maybe for my own personal growth, maybe for my growth as an educator, right? So and this is his to-do list. Of course, he wrote in Italian, right? But the English translation of his to-do list is available also. So have a look at Da Vinci's to-do list. All right, this is around 1490. Number one, get the math of arithmetic. Get the master of arithmetic to show you how to square a triangle. So this is his to-do list. Ask so-and-so, the Florentine merchant, by what means they go on ice in Flanders. Basically, how do they skate, or how do they move on ice? So this is his to-do list. This is what he wants to kind of find out more of. Draw Milan. This is something he wants to do. Find a master of hydraulics and get him to tell you how to repair a lock, canal, and mill in the Lombard manner. Ask about the measurement of the sun promised me by this person. Basically, this person promised me that he will show me how to measure the distance from the sun, Earth from the sun. So, ask him about that. And then examine the crossbow of this person. So basically his to-do list is like all the things, is his wish list, all the things he wants to know, all the people he needs to ask things from, all the people who promised that they were going to teach him. So you imagine yours would be like, ask Prof. Karim about something. So it's your to-do list, right? So you may have a section in your journal that lists your to-do list, right? List the things that you want to achieve. Maybe for the month of April and May, you have a fixed to-do list. These are the things you want to achieve before the end of May, and then the next 2 months you have something else. So you set your own to-do list. Maybe you can keep adding to the to-do list. So that will keep you motivated to improve your craft. Again, back to sharpening the saw. And this is also connected to the idea of process versus progress. So you notice every step of these to-do lists is one component, one incremental interest in Da Vinci's portfolio of interests, right? So looking at the process is as important as looking at the big picture, the progress that you have made. So maybe this is something you want to incorporate. In Ryan Holiday's Stillness is the Key, I'm just gonna kind of like, round up today's session. One of the key reasons to start journaling, according to Holiday, is to help you develop stillness, to kind of help you develop the ability to just quieten, let's have a look at the bottom bit, to silence the barking dogs in your head, to prepare for the day ahead, to reflect on the day that has passed, take note of insights you have heard, take the time to feel wisdom flow from your fingers and onto the page. So journaling actually helps you do many, many things. Helps you quieten the chatter in your mind, helps you to prepare the day that you are going to experience, helps you also to kind of reflect on the day that was, how much have I done these last 18 hours or so, right? It also helps you to kind of capture the insights. Maybe there was a particular quote that you heard, or there was a line that you read that you want to kind of capture that. You can journal about that. So it's about allowing freedom of expressing your ideas and thoughts, but it is also about allowing wisdom to flow through you, right? So journaling does that. So look at the kind of questions that Holiday's journaling ideas suggest. Journaling is a way to ask tough questions, right? Where am I standing in my own way? What's the smallest step I can take towards a big thing today? Just a small step that I can take towards moving the way I want to go, right? Why am I so worked up about this? What blessings can I count right now? Why do I care so much about impressing people? Oh my God, if only all of us would ask those questions, huh? What is the harder choice I am avoiding? Ugh. Do I rule my fear, or do they rule me? How will today's difficulties reveal my character? Right? Can you imagine if we inculcate this in ourselves? Just one or two of those on a regular basis, asking those kinds of questions, keeping in mind that journaling is not for somebody else. So as much as I promote, publishing your thoughts on blogs, if you are there, if you're at that stage of life, go forth and do that. But if you're not, like me, if you're private, you want to keep your thoughts to yourself, do that as well. But do express those thoughts. Ask yourself these kinds of questions, right? And it will help you improve your character as a person, because you want that, right? You want to have strong sense of character, because when you enter the classroom, when you are with your students, that's what they get from you. That aspect of your character is what they get from you. So the concluding thoughts, journal about anything that you feel relevant to your context. Whatever that you feel like you want to journal about, go do it. Maybe these are some ideas that would help you start. Journal about your goals and aspirations, perhaps, as educators, your fears and insecurities at playing small, your strategies to overcome these fears, perhaps. You might have one day or a couple of days or maybe a week or a month that you're just journaling about your fears and insecurities. It's okay. If that's what feels right, and it comes out through you, it's okay. And then maybe, a month or two later, you're looking at those, you're reflecting on what you have written. And then you're asking yourself, what can I do to overcome these? So you can start to strategize. Maybe I can listen to more webinars or podcasts, or read more books, or watch more YouTube TED Talks, or whatever. Right? So these are strategies that you may look at other people's strategies and then pull them in. Right? So this is what somebody has said. This is what somebody has said. Okay, I'm going to pull that in. This is what my webinar session was about me having gone through this experience and then listening to other people, watching YouTube, TED Talks, reading people's books, reading blogs, reading journal articles, and then bringing it all together, right? Having kept journals for myself, and now I'm sharing my thoughts with you. So this is like, it's coming full circle for me, right? Maybe you want to journal about quotes that inspire you, like I started our webinar series with a quote, numerous quotes, but the quote about how you don't learn from experience, but you learn from reflecting on your experience. That's something that has stayed with me. All right. So maybe you've got quotes that inspire you. You want to keep that in your journal as well, and look at them and ask yourself, what about this quote that inspires me? What about this quote that moves me? So you may want to write about that. You may also want to journal on feedback. So last week, Tara said something about, how good it felt when students, past students come back to you and tell you how your teaching has affected them. It feels good to have those kinds of feedback. You want to kind of capture them as well, because they help motivate you. So when you are like going through challenging times, like what I narrated earlier, you may look at those motivational statements by your students and say, yeah, I'm not that bad. When those running thoughts, those negativity biases come and say, I failed, I feel like a loser, I'm not good enough. You look at these other things that your students are telling you, you're like, yeah, I'm not that bad. If these students can come back, make time to actually come back and visit me, they don't get credit for it, they don't get a grade for it, they just feel like doing that, they feel moved enough to kind of come back and say hi to me and thank me, I must have done something awesome, right? So feedbacks from the students can also be something you may want to capture in your journal. So the list is endless, so go forth and journal and see where the journey takes you, and move with that and sharpen your saw this way. I think with that, I end my session. If you have any questions for me, you may ask either through the Telegram, or you may ask me here in the session. I think Prof. Karim is not here, so I'm just going to kind of moderate my own session. If you've got questions for me, please feel free, or comments even. I love comments and feedbacks. Any thoughts, any comments? Aman, anything to say? You're trying to type here, I see. I hope this has been useful. I hope I'm finishing up my Medium article based on these three webinar sessions. I will share with them with you through the Telegram. If you feel useful, if you find it relevant, please do share them with friends, those who are in the education field specifically. Yes, Sufril, sure. I'll send you all the slides also through the Telegram channel. Aman, thank you. So far, I got a lot of new things. Yeah, alhamdulillah, good. Just take one of them and run with it. That's my policy. Don't try to take too many because you feel overwhelmed, because you've got a lot on your plate already as educators, right? There's so many things that you need to kind of be mindful of, as well as achieve every year. Just take one of these things and just run with it, and then take another one later on and come back to it. I will make these slides available for sure, if they are of use to you. Any questions? We'll just wrap up. We'll just give ourselves another minute if there is nothing else. Is there any questions from anyone? I'm on the Telegram, so if you want to kind of continue engaging with me on the Telegram, please feel free. For those of you who want to leave the Telegram group, go ahead. It's there for us to kind of communicate and kind of create a kind of community of practitioners. I'm a great believer of the need for that kind of a support system, because sometimes it can get overwhelming when you're all alone. So there are various other communities, both on the social media that you may be interested in, as well as various kinds of associations. So do engage with them, and I hope that your experience as educators continue to grow no matter what the situations are, and perhaps maybe we may be able to meet up face to face someday. So if there's nothing else, then I will say thank you so much for your participation and your patience, especially for those of you who've been coming for the last 3 sessions. I really appreciate your support and your participation, especially in Telegram. And before I forget, for those of us observing the month of Ramadan, Ramadan Kareem to all of us. May the month of Ramadan bring us great barakah. And yeah, take care, everybody. CDAE, back to you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.
Waalaikumsalam.
Alhamdulillah. Terima kasih banyak Profesor Madya Dr. Raihana.
Sama-sama.
Terima kasih kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama-sama kami mengendalikan 3 sesi dalam siri seminar ini ya, The Art of Journaling for Educators. So ini merupakan yang terakhir. Jadi siri seminar ni saya rasa banyak mengajak peserta melakukan refleksi, selain banyak menyajikan perkara-perkara baru sebagai pencetus minda yang saya pasti memang boleh diadaptasi dan diaplikasi dalam pembelajaran dan pengajaran. Jadi memang saya rumuskan sesi siri ini sebagai sangat awesome lah. Jadi CDAE merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan atas segala ilmu yang dicurahkan dan pelbagai pengalaman yang dikongsi. Sekiranya ada rezeki nanti, insya-Allah kami mengharapkan akan dapat menjemput lagi Profesor Madya Dr. Raihana untuk sesi webinar yang akan datang, insya-Allah. Jadi terima kasih juga kepada semua peserta yang setia mengikuti siri seminar ini. Jangan lupa mengisi borang maklum balas yang telah di linknya kami telah bagi dalam chat box. Jadi CDAE juga mengucapkan Ramadan Karim kepada semua. Moga Ramadan kali ini lebih baik daripada yang tahun lepas. Moga kita sama-sama dapat meningkatkan segala amal ibadah, membuat segala yang terbaik, membuat yang terbaik ya untuk Ramadan kali ini insya-Allah. So terima kasih banyak sekali lagi Dr. Raihana. Kami memang sangat-sangat menghargai kesudian doktor ya bersama-sama kami dalam tiga sesi. InsyaAllah kita jumpa lagi. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Bye-bye everybody. Take care. Be good.
Ya, terima kasih. Take care.